They called it food, but it was survival disguised as suffering. When the guns stopped roaring and the world went silent behind barbed wire, thousands of captured soldiers sat in camps, clutching metal tins and waiting for something, anything, to fill the emptiness in their stomachs. The war had taken their freedom, and now it was coming for their strength. Guards moved through the rows with buckets of thin liquid they called soup. Inside floated a few gray leaves, sometimes a potato peel, sometimes nothing at all. It wasn't a meal. It was a test of how long the human body could endure. That was food number 1, weed soup. Not spinach, not herbs, but literal grass and boiled weeds. Prison cooks scavenged whatever green scraps they could find near the fences, hoping to trick hunger for another day. Men swallowed the bitter water, praying it would keep them alive until morning. The second meal came once a week, if they were lucky. A chunk of bread, smaller than a fist, half-baked and rock-hard. Some camps mixed sawdust or ground straw into the flour to stretch the dough. It tasted of wood and despair. They called it sawdust bread, and it broke teeth as often as it broke hearts. Yet soldiers hid crumbs under their sleeves, trading them like gold. That crust wasn't food, it was hope, rationed by the ounce. When even that was gone, they scraped burned residue from the bottom of pans. Charcoal porridge, the third on our list, was made from scorched barley or anything that could be boiled into darkness. Black smoke clung to the metal pots, and prisoners spooned the ashes into their mouths, pretending it was coffee. Every swallow hurt, but hunger screamed louder. At night, the camp fell quiet except for coughing and the clink of tin cups. Across the world, in another prison, on another front, the same ritual repeated. American airmen in Japanese camps, British soldiers in German stalags, Russians in frozen barracks. They were all united by the same invisible enemy: hunger. Food number 4 wasn't even meant for humans. It was animal feed mash, a mix of crushed oats and husks given to horses before the war. When supplies collapsed, guards shoveled it into human bowls. The smell was sweet and rotten at once, and men forced themselves to chew slowly so it would last. In whispered voices, they'd remember real meals: steak, buttered bread, chocolate, but the taste faded with every new sunrise. The 5th item came from desperation itself: rat stew. Soldiers risked beatings to set traps in the dark corners of barracks. A caught rat meant protein, a victory. They'd skin it, boil it, and share it among 5 men. Nobody looked at the meat too closely. They just thanked God for something warm. It wasn't disgust. They'd lost that long ago. It was survival. By now, bones showed through uniforms. Letters from home stopped coming. Still, they fought another kind of war. One fought with spoons, not rifles. Each day alive felt like a small rebellion against death. By the 6th day, the soup had no taste at all. And that's when they found something new: fish bone broth. It was made from scraps swept off market floors before the trucks left the cities. The cooks dropped the brittle bones into boiling water, let them dissolve, and called it a meal. There was no meat, only the faint scent of the sea, but it reminded the men that the world still had oceans and life somewhere beyond the wire. Number 7 was turnip stew, a watery bowl that could be sweet one week and bitter the next. When they were lucky, someone found a bruised onion or a slice of carrot. That splash of color felt like a feast. Soldiers wrote in secret diaries that a single bite of real vegetable made them believe they see home again. The 8th was a handful of powdered milk and sugar crumbs stolen from Red Cross parcels. They mixed it with water and called it pudding. Some saved it for birthdays or holidays that no longer existed, just to remember what celebration felt like. When a friend shared his last spoonful, it meant more than medals or rank. It meant humanity hadn't died. Food number 9 came from a miracle shipment: canned meat labeled Spam. The taste was salty, heavy, unforgettable. For those moments, they were soldiers again, eating something that felt real. They divided one can among 10 men, slicing it thin so everyone could close their eyes and pretend it was dinner at home. The 10th was the strangest: coffee made from roasted barley. It had no caffeine, only warmth. But when guards weren't watching, prisoners would whisper stories over the smoky drink, swapping rumors that the war might soon end. The barley coffee wasn't about flavor, it was about memory, the ritual of normal life they refused to surrender. Every bite carried tension, between despair and defiance, between the body's weakness and the mind's refusal to give up. They learned that hope, like hunger, demanded to be fed. Food number 11 was dry biscuit rations, so hard that some men soaked them for hours before they dared to bite. When water ran low, they broke the biscuit with a rock and chewed slowly until their jaws ached. The taste of dust filled their mouths, but they told themselves it was bread fresh from an oven somewhere far away. Number 12 was boiled potato peels. Every scrap saved from the guards' kitchens became treasure. They cleaned the skins with freezing water, boiled them until soft, and passed the bowl around like it was stew. One man said that eating the peel made him think of home gardens and Sunday dinners. Another said it made him remember his mother's hands. The 13th was thin cabbage soup, the kind that left a sheen of oil on the surface but never filled a stomach. Still, when it was hot, it felt alive. The smell drifted through the barracks, and for a few minutes everyone sat quietly, eyes closed, tasting warmth instead of fear. Number 14 was a handful of beans, rare and precious. Sometimes they were sprouted, sometimes hard as stones, but they carried real protein, a word that meant survival. Prisoners traded cigarettes, buttons, anything for a spoonful of beans. It was the currency of hunger. The 15th was stale margarine spread on black bread. The butter substitute arrived from old supply stores, gray and heavy with salt. It melted under candle heat, and for a heartbeat, it smelled like breakfast. Men dipped their fingers into it, closing their eyes, remembering mornings before the war when the world still made sense. Every meal, no matter how small, was a story. Each spoonful held a decision, to give in or to keep going. And as weeks became months, those who endured began to understand something terrible and beautiful, that survival wasn't only about food, it was about faith, about the stubborn will to see another sunrise, no matter what it cost. Food number 16 was rice gruel, a bowl of cloudy water with only a few grains floating at the bottom. The taste was nothing, but the warmth mattered. On cold mornings it felt like life itself. They learned to hold the cup close to their faces, breathing in the steam, pretending it was a full meal. Number 17 was dried fish scraps, brittle and sharp, salvaged from shipments meant for animals. They soaked them in water until they softened, then divided them carefully. The salt burned cracked lips, but that sting meant nourishment. The ocean's ghost still lingered in that flavor, reminding them of freedom. 18 was vegetable pulp, the leftover mash from making soup for the guards. What was waste for one side became sustenance for the other. Men scraped the bottom of the barrels, pressing the bits together into patties that held no shape but gave just enough strength to stand another day. Food number 19 was barley bread, coarse and dark, baked without yeast. It tasted like dirt, but it stayed in the stomach longer than soup. When someone received an extra slice, they tore it into smaller pieces to share. It was an unspoken rule of decency among the starving. The 20th was powdered cocoa, a spoonful saved from a Red Cross parcel. Mixed with water, it turned into a muddy drink that smelled of home. For a few seconds, laughter returned. One man said it tasted like his childhood Christmas. Another said it reminded him of a girl waiting back home. That single cup of cocoa was proof that memory could feed the spirit when food could not. Each of these strange rations carried the same lesson. Hunger could break the body, but not always the will. In every camp, someone found a way to stretch a meal, to share, to joke, to hold on to something human. And that, more than any ration list, was the real secret of survival. Food number 21 was beet soup, thin, red, and faintly sweet. It looked brighter than it tasted, but that color did something no words could describe. It reminded the men that the world still had color, that life beyond the wire was not all gray. Number 22 was salted cabbage leaves pressed flat between stones. They were tough, almost leathery, but the salt made them crave more. Soldiers called them paper meals. They chewed until their jaws hurt, laughing softly at the absurdity of eating paper just to pretend they were dining. The 23rd was scrap stew, a pot of everything that had ever touched a kitchen. Onion skins, potato eyes, pieces of crust. Each batch tasted different. Sometimes better, sometimes worse, but it carried the same promise: warmth. They learned to wait for that first wisp of steam the way they once waited for mail from home. Number 24 was fruit peel tea, made from dried apple skins or orange rinds stolen from garbage. Boiled in water, it gave off a faint, sweet smell that filled the room with memory. They called it hope tea. For 10 minutes, while the cup steamed, they felt civilized again. And the 25th, perhaps the most powerful of all, was shared bread. Not a new food, not something exotic, but a simple gesture repeated in every camp. One man tearing his last piece of bread in half so another could eat. That act was nourishment beyond calories. It fed the soul. It meant that even in a world built on cruelty, kindness still existed. When liberation finally came, some men could barely walk, yet they carried those small lessons home. They told their families about the hunger, yes, but also about the friendships forged over a single crust of bread. The war had shown them the worst of humanity, and yet, somehow, the best. Those 25 foods were more than survival. They were symbols of endurance, memory, and the quiet strength that keeps people alive when everything else is taken away. So, when you sit down to eat tonight, remember them. The men who learned to be grateful for a spoon of soup, a peel of fruit, a crumb of bread. Because history isn't just about battles won. It's about what it took to stay human when the world forgot how. If this story moved you, share it. Subscribe for more untold moments from history. Stories that remind us how fragile and how powerful the human spirit can be.